we take a noble position of whatever seems to be comfortable, and the position can change. We just like to apply mindfulness toward it as we're changing. So whether it's lifting your hand to scratch your face, or whether it's slowly standing up to do a walking practice in the room, we allow mindfulness, we allow trying to really be present in this very moment of what's happening right now. And we can notice that we might have thoughts about the past and we might have thoughts about the present, but we do our best to come back to this present moment. And so often it's easy to use the breath as a way of being with the present. Sometimes it's also finding a touch point of where the hands might be touching, or where the eyelids are touching, or the lips are touching, where the feet are touching the floor. That's a way of grounding within our bodies. But we have all of the senses in which we get all of our reality. All of our conditioned reality comes to us from our senses, from hearing and seeing and smelling and tasting and touching, and the thought door of thinking. So we don't turn any of that away. We just allow ourselves to be in this position that works for us. It's nice to have a container for our practice, so I'm going to start by ringing a bell and just invite the sound to arrive at the ear door. And even as that sound arrives, we may notice right on the tail of the bare hearing could be a conditioned thought, pleasant. Or sometimes if my dog barks, there might be an idea of something that's unpleasant. So we can use these feeling tones of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral as a way to also bring ourselves to the present moment. Allowing yourselves to be comfortable. You don't need to sit and be right in front of the screen the whole time. If you have another place where you feel easeful within your room, as long as you can hear the sound of my voice, and just allow the sound to wash over you. If you have a way that you like to always begin your practice, you can just let the sound of my voice be sound arriving to the ears, the same way that the bell arrives at the ears. And we can take a few moments with a breath or two to begin to allow a sense of relaxation to flow through the body. Sometimes it's helpful when we first sit down to take like an inside picture or a mindscape of sweeping the mind through the body, relaxing as it goes, letting the eyelids relax. And just noticing, is there tension around the eyes or at the temples? And what about in the face? If there's tension there, we can notice it. Oftentimes, as soon as we notice it, it changes. It may soften a little. But there's no desire for an outcome. We're just being present and letting this soft sense of relaxation flow around the jaw, the lips, the tongue, letting our shoulders be worn like a cape around our skeleton, like a cape of stars at night. Let the cape of our shoulder blades just relax a little. Feeling sensation around the heart and the belly, letting a sense of gravity, centeredness, letting the body be our container. And we can feel gravity, noticing our feet on the floor. And we can also bring sensation, noticing sensations. Do we notice pressure on whichever foot we're paying attention to? Do we notice heat or coolness? Do we notice density? Or is there spaciousness? We're just present with sensations. And for now, it's just those sensations that are in the feet as a touch point. Or we can use the buttocks on the chair as a touch point. Sometimes when the mind goes wandering off into past or future, we can bring ourselves back to the present by feeling pressure at the buttocks, or warmth there, or density. So as we begin slowly stilling the body and calming the mind, we can use one of those touch points as a place to return to. When we're confused or don't know what to do, we can just come back to one of those touch points, or maybe where the hands are touching, or how the eyelids are touching. Another common single object for our attention is often taught as the breath. Something that's with us all the time and we can always be aware of. We can feel it at the nostrils. We may notice coolness on the inhale and perhaps warmth on the exhale, whatever your experience is. Because that's the idea, it's direct experience. We have the great pleasure and honor and pay homage to the Buddha, one of the enlightened ones, who was able to see clearly and for himself that there's nothing really to hang on to. Everything arises and passes away, is non-personal, and caused by conditions coming together and going apart. If we grasp at things, we may notice that there is suffering that occurs. Whether we're grasping at something that's pleasurable or pushing something away. But we pay homage to our ability to see this clearly and really begin to train the heart and mind to understand that there is freedom from suffering, from our direct experience of being present as much as we can to what's arising and passing away in our heart, mind, body. we also pay homage to the Dhamma, the truth of the way things are, which we are seeing moment by moment. Some more gross sensations in the body. We may feel tensions here and there in the body, and we can notice and be present with it. And we might notice that it changes location or changes sensation, density, or lightness, or stabbing, or whatever happens in body sensations. They usually arise and pass away, or with thoughts, with thought forms. We're just present with what arises. We can travel spaciously in this container of our breathing body and allow whatever arises at any of the sense doors to be known. Or we can put a little more containment around it and stay with just the breath or the touch point to help train the mind to settle down and get a little calmer on a single object. And we're gentle with ourselves. We hold ourselves gently through all of this, with kindness. There's no rush to accomplish anything or to get anywhere. We can be at ease. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs out of Unentangled Knowing from Upasika Key. Our practice is to contemplate until we understand stress and its cause. In other words, the defilements that have power and authority in the heart and mind. It's only because we have this practice that we can disband these defilements, that we can disband stress every day and at all times. This is something really marvelous. Those who don't practice don't have a clue, even though they live enveloped by the defilements and stress. They simply get led around by the nose into more and more suffering, and yet none of them realize what's going on. If we don't make contact with the Dhamma, if we don't practice, we go through birth and death simply to create karma with one another and to keep whirling around in suffering and stress. We have to contemplate until we really see stress. That's when we'll become uncomplacent and try to disband it or to gain release from it. The practice is thus a matter of struggling to gain victory over stress and suffering with better and better results each time. Whatever mistakes we make in whatever way, we have to try to avoid making them again. And we have to contemplate the harm and suffering caused by the more subtle defilements, cravings, and attachments within us. This is why we probe into the deeper, more profound paths of the heart. For if we stay only on the superficial levels of emptiness in the mind, we won't gain any profound knowledge at all. So we train the mind to be mindful and firmly centered and to fix its focus on looking within, knowing within. Don't let it get distracted outside. When it focuses within, it will come to know the truth of stress and of the causes of stress, defilements of craving and attachments as they arise. It will see that they're like, what they're like, and how to probe inward to disband them. And so we notice as we're sitting the defilements or the 5 hindrances, as they're called. Oftentimes they arise and we can notice them and come back to the breath. That of desire or greed, wanting to grasp at things and cling to things. And we can notice aversion or ill will when we want to push something away that seems uncomfortable. We can notice the old-fashioned word of sloth and torpor, as it's called in the suttas. Tiredness arising. It's very interesting when you apply mindfulness to tiredness, because you might notice there's something very pleasurable happening, just as the consciousness is going away and you can't really pay attention to what's happening, and then you might wake up in the next moment and go, ah, yeah, I'm waking up in this moment. Tiredness was there. It seemed very pleasurable. And we also have restlessness and anxiety. There's restlessness in the mind and in the body. And we can see that as well, like another passing mood of the mind. And doubt can arise, wondering why we're here, why we're doing this practice, why something hasn't been accomplished. All of these hindrances are normal ways that they're called hindrances because they hinder us from being able to see clearly, being able to acknowledge the joy that actually might be arising to see clearly. So even waking up to the moment of being tired, or waking up to the moment of noticing restlessness or pain in the body somewhere that we're aversive to, that moment of acknowledgement is mindfulness, being present. And that's awareness, and we have the wisdom of investigation saying, oh, we're gaining an understanding of what's actually happening here. And we can have this intention of generosity to ourselves, letting go, and holding ourselves in loving kindness and compassion. Every now and then, just asking ourselves what is happening in the heart and mind right now. What is the attitude of the mind? Gently bringing ourselves back to the breath or the touch point, beginning again, noticing the rising, the space in between and the falling of the breath, the space in between before the breath arises again. We can notice whether the breath is a long breath or a short breath. What are the sensations that we notice at that point? Pressure, heat, coolness, various sensations that we can give a soft, gentle note to. If we find the mind sort of on fire all over the place with thinking, we can bring ourselves back to that breath and just with a gentle voice to ourselves, maybe 5% of our attention, noticing breath number 1. And breath number 2. Just be present with the breath, counting maybe up to 10 and back, whatever distance you decide, and then beginning again. Stilling the body, calming the mind, and gladdening the mind. We can have a soft, gentle smile on the inside, just a little smile, upliftment of the heart and mind. And we can actually notice true joy each moment that we are awake and aware. A way of skillfully inclining the mind, making just enough effort to be present, relaxed yet present. Every now and then when the mind wanders off, we can just gently bring it back to the present moment, waking up right where we are, or coming back to the breath or the sit point or the touch point, without judgment or criticism, just being present and beginning again. In this very moment, we can see what arises. We can see whether it passes quickly or maybe it takes a longer amount of time to pass. Conditions come together, something arises, we see it with mindfulness. Awareness is present with it. It lasts for however long it's going to last, and we try to keep our attention with it until we see it pass away. A conditioned thing that arises in the mind, we see it clearly using mindfulness, and we see that it arises and passes away. Whether it's sleepiness, dullness, tiredness, whether it's grasping or clinging or hanging on to something, or liking something or not liking something else, or being restless, all of these hindrances arise and pass away, all within the overview of mindfulness being present and awareness being there. Returning to the anchor of our cauldron of our breath in our body. Sometimes, even though we've been following our breath, we can also notice the expansion of the breath within the whole body. There can be a kind of lightness with the breath. We can have more of a bird's eye view of what's going on, even though we're still aware of our breath rising and falling. We can have a broader awareness of whatever's happening in the body and in the mind, staying within and being present, holding ourselves kindly, gently. Things are always coming together, rising and falling apart. And we're present with what arises. When it falls apart, we have a kind of relaxed diligence, just the right amount of effort to be interested in what's going on right now. Everything is happening by itself. There's nothing to do but be present, to bring mindfulness and awareness to seeing what's happening. It's happening by itself. We don't have to force anything. We just have to be present. Without grasping or pushing away, without tiring ourselves at trying to make something happen. We can be open and relaxed. Being inviting of the present moment, being interested in the present moment. And that we can remind ourselves of being joyful, that there's joy not dependent on an ideal or perfect conditions in our lives, but joyfulness is a quality that is inwardly born and generated, possible in all moments. No matter how difficult things may be, we have mindfulness there, we're present. That's a moment of joy, being present with what is, not dependent on ideal conditions. And so we hold ourselves kindly, gently, letting whatever arises arise, being aware and interested. Letting a sense of kindness pervade our being. Maybe there's something pleasant that brings goodwill to mind, or a place in nature that uplifts you or makes you happy, or a favorite spot in your room or your house where you like to be, where you feel the containment and refuge to hold yourself gently. May we have goodwill and kindness for ourselves. And may we let this kindness flow to another person, to a teacher, a benefactor. It could be a child or an animal, a teacher. Seeing this person happy and healthy, free from harm and having ease in their lives. Letting that kindness that we hold within our container of our being, of our heart center, letting that kindness flow and to include this benefactor into our hearts. This practice too helps us increase concentration. It helps keep out those hindrances because we have a single focus of inclining the heart and mind toward goodwill. Letting this goodwill and kindness flow to a neutral person, or neutral people, someone we don't know well, but maybe we see them regularly. Or maybe we don't know at all, but we've seen them on our device somewhere. It could be a group of people or just a single person holding this person or a group of people in our hearts, knowing just as I wish to be happy, I know that you also wish to be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be at ease, letting this goodness flow to the neutral category. Remembering that gentle smile. Letting the feeling in the heart include this neutral category. And we can let this kindness and compassion that arises when we are present for another person's suffering, whether it's ourselves or our teacher, our close friend, the neutral person, may we remember to have compassion for their suffering, and may they have compassion for their own suffering. May the distress and dis-ease in their lives be held gently. And letting these thoughts of kindness and compassion flow to others, to family members, friends, others in our circle here, other circles of people that we relate to. May these beings be free from harm, safe and protected, and have ease in their lives. May their minds be relaxed, peaceful and tranquil, and may they have ease and well-being. Developing this culture of our heart to include all beings, seen and unseen, known and unknown, those in joy and those in sorrow, those enlightened and those unenlightened, those beings that swim and crawl and walk and are below the earth and are above the earth, that fly. May all beings everywhere be at ease. May we be present for their suffering and yet not fall into extremes. May we all be aware of our moments of joy and equanimity as we allow in our heart space kindness for all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from harm and have ease in their lives. Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya domino upakitawa maruchanti te samvapasamo sukho. All conditioned things are subject to impermanence. They arise and pass away. And seeing this clearly with mindfulness brings the greatest happiness, which is peace. Hearing the sound of the bell arrive at the ears again, and as we gently open our eyes and allow light in and notice how conditions change when we reach for our glasses or get a drink of water or stretch in place, may we let this kindness come to each other in our circle here. And may we realize that the goodness of our practice has benefit for all sentient beings. And that is no small feat for spending this time being with the mind, no matter what's going on. Being willing to be present has great benefit for all sentient beings.